Once again, a very warm good morning. So for yesterday's continuation, today we are going to see what all components there we have to manage if we are using any of the cloud services. It might be the infrastructure as a service, it might be platform as a service, or it might be software as a service. Just to give you a simple glance, every service comes with its own set of advantages, own set of limitations. There are limitations also for each and every service, might be an infrastructure, might be software, or might be platform. But in simple terms, how different they are, what all components we can manage, what all components we can see. Let's just get a glance of it. See, this is how the exact criteria is for infrastructure, platform, or as a software. If you're working, if you're using any software as a service, see, there is only data associated with that software, and there is only that application which you're using, that specific software which you are using. Anything related to platform, that means your software, how that software is designed, which operating system it is suitable with, how can you manage that operating system, all that stuff, all that information can be managed in the platform as a service. That can be easily managed as a platform as a service. Now, in accordance, if you're using an operating system, where can we install that exact software, the on-premise software or maybe the cloud software? Including that software, you're handling the complete infrastructure. Might be you're handling storage, might be you're handling the connectivity, that is internet, might be you are handling the virtualization. How many people are connecting to that specific instance in one single go, kind of virtualization. What is the exact memory being consumed with that application? How do you handle that memory? All this information can be managed in infrastructure. Now, with the words itself, we can guess that we are managing the complete infrastructure of that software. We are managing the platform of that software, and only if we are using that software, that means we are only consuming the software. We are not bothered about all that infrastructure and platform. So that is simply called as software as a service. Now, in detail, what can be managed, what cannot be managed by us, how the process is. In case of infrastructure as a service, this orange part, this complete orange part, in case of software, this is completely managed by the organization which has developed this. Now, in case of infrastructure, this orange part is the only part which is managed by the organization, where as a user, we can manage application, we can manage data, we can manage middleware, how that application is connected with the background data, we can manage operating system. So the part which is in blue, we have to individually manage. We get that infrastructure, we get that flexibility, we can manage all these applications which are mentioned in blue. Which are mentioned in orange, it is managed by the particular organization which has developed that specific service, or which has developed that specific software. Now, in case of platform, it is limited. Only application we can manage and data we can manage. Anything related to connectivity, anything related to server virtualization, that is completely managed by the organization. And at the last, if you're taking an example of software as a service, it is simply install that software and run that software. We are least bothered about all the process, all the background which is associated with that specific software. Now, this is just a basic example. For every service, as I've said, it comes with own set of advantages and disadvantages. Now, what kind of advantages we have, what kind of disadvantages we have, just to get an idea. So that information I'll try to note down in a specific notepad. It would be easier for us to guess the exact description or exact limitation of each service. Let me open it. Services in cloud. So for infrastructure as a service, to start with IaaS, see, there are advantages also and there are disadvantages also. Now, what all advantages we have, what all disadvantages we have, let us list down. See, if we are using infrastructure as a service, the biggest advantage we get is flexibility to manage the infrastructure. Now, what do you mean by infrastructure? The complete architecture of that specific application or that specific service we are using, we can manage it. Maybe we can increase the CPU consumption, we can decrease the CPU consumption, we can increase the virtualization, how many people can connect in one single go. That all applications can be managed here. So that all applications is all part and parcel of infrastructure. Maybe your connectivity, the CPU consumption, the usage, or maybe CPU usage, how many people can use it, how amount of services can be connected with that application. That complete advantage is there with the infrastructure as a service. It's scalability. Now, what do you mean by scalability? See, scalability means the same process. You can increase or decrease the scalable of an application. Whatever application, whatever service we are using, you can increase or decrease the scalability of that service or decrease it. It is up to us. That flexibility we'll get. Now, even after flexibility and scalability, we have another advantage. Wherever you are using this infrastructure as a service, we can install it. See, if you are developing that infrastructure, you can install it anywhere you want. Either you can install it in your Windows operating system, either you can install it in your Linux operating system, or whichever operating system you are taking care of, maybe an Android, maybe your the iOS. We have a flexibility, so we can install that specific application wherever we want, because you have that infrastructure. You can change, or maybe you can use that scalable software. You can increase or decrease that availability, and you can install it anywhere, any specific device you're looking out for. Now, as I've said, infrastructure as a service comes with its own advantages also. There are some limitations. Now, what do you mean by limitations? There are kind of, you cannot call it as simply drawback, but there are set of limitations. You cannot go beyond that limit if you're using this infrastructure as a service. Now, what limitation we have? Security service, maybe any kind of security issues. See, if you have that flexibility to install it anywhere, that means if you install this specific application, which is a restricted application, you have a flexibility, you are working, you have got that complete advantage of infrastructure as a service, and that application is only restricted for few set of people. But if you are using that application or service wherever you want, you are installing it in your Windows system, you are installing it in your mobile Android devices, which is not recommended, because it can be a security threat. That application is restricted, it can be a security threat. So security issue is one of the biggest limitation for infrastructure as a service. Now, another disadvantage is network and service delays. Now, as I've said, you have a scalability, you can increase or decrease the scalability of an app or that specific service. If there is a network issue, scalability decreases. Scalability is an advantage, but if there is a network issue or a service delay, that application will not work properly. That infrastructure application will not work properly. So it has to be very crisp and clear. The network has to be very crisp and clear. If there are any delays in the network itself, the end user who is consuming this infrastructure as a service would be very difficult. He would find it very difficult to load that specific service or consume that specific service, because at the source itself, there is a service delay. Now, same goes with platform as a service. If you're using platform as a service, it has its own advantages and disadvantages. Now, what advantages we have? Let's look at it. See, in case of platform, we are not getting infrastructure, we only get a platform where we can develop an application. But how that platform is managed, that platform is managed by background infrastructure. There is a certain infrastructure for it. So infrastructure is not managed here, only platform is managed. Now, one of the
Hello, sir.
advantage of,
Sorry to interrupt.
yep,
Can you please tell us like any example of IaaS software?
sure. In case of infrastructure as a service, virtual machine is the example. See, if you're using
VMware.
a virtual machine, yep, your VM. Any specific VM, you try to create a VM. So here, while creating a VM in cloud, we can increase, we can use that scalable, we can use, what operating system we want, we can choose that. What is the CPU consumption? Maybe you want 4 GB RAM, maybe you want 8 GB RAM. that also we have a flexibility. You can also choose where do you want to install this application. Now, if you're using Windows, that means it has to be, utilized, or it has to be installed in a specific laptop or a desktop, which is full suitable for it. So we have that flexibility. Wherever we want, we can install it. Virtual machine is the best example of infrastructure as a service. Any VM, you take any example of cloud, VM is all part and parcel of infrastructure as a service. Now, just to get started with, I'll also give you an example of PaaS, the platform as a service. Let's start with an advantage. See, in case of platform as a service, the biggest advantage is cost effective. Now, how come it's cost effective as compared to infrastructure? See, in case of infrastructure, cost effective as compared to IaaS. Now, in case of infrastructure as a service, see, you have to make sure your device is all if whatever service you're using, that device is capable to handle that service. So device should be one of the important factor. In case of platform, device is not an important factor. You get a platform. Infrastructure is completely managed by the organization who has developed that application. So you are only getting a platform and you can utilize that platform wherever. As compared to infrastructure, we need to decide which device is the best fit. So device is one of the costly component here. In case of platform, no device is taken care. It is only the platform where you want to use that application. Now, cost effective as compared to infrastructure as a service, it is faster for developers. Now, how come faster for developers? See, in case of software as a service, if you're using SaaS, which is software as a service, any example you take, if you're taking an example of any application, your WhatsApp, see, we do not have a flexibility to go back and change. We need not have a platform where we want to change certain updates in the WhatsApp. Anyhow, the infrastructure of WhatsApp is managed by the Facebook or Meta, but we do not even have a flexibility. We do not even have a platform that my WhatsApp is somewhere misbehaving. I want to go back and change it. That platform also, that flexibility also we do not have. It is simply software as a service, install it and use it. Whereas in case of platform as a service, there are many services. Now, ADF is a platform as a service. The Azure Data Factory, it's an ETL tool. The Azure Data Factory, we do not have a flexibility about infrastructure, but we have a platform there. We can use this ADF for extracting, for transforming, and for loading a data. Now you can do n number of transformations, n number of kind of managing data, kind of cleaning data. That all process can be done with the help of ADF. We get that platform. Infrastructure is not managed of ADF, only platform can be managed. Now, whatever application is used by developers, almost every application is called as platform as a service, because developer has that flexibility. He can go back and change it. Developer can change it. Whatever changes are required, he can change it as per the end user. So whichever application, wherever developer comes into picture, it's basically a platform as a service. In case of infrastructure as a service, who is the owner here, or whom we can call it? Any people who are working as an admin, any individual who is working as an admin roles are all related to infrastructure as a service, because admin can give you access, admin can revoke the access. Whereas a developer, you cannot review or revoke an access. Only thing is you can change that application. So changing an application is specific to platform and it is related to the developers. Easy to deploy. Yes, it can be easily deployed because we are not managing infrastructure. We are only managing that platform. So we can easy deployment. We have a combination called as private and public. Now, if you're working as a developer, you want that application to be private. Yes, you can keep it as a private. Now, private means this private pool is created by admin people. You have to go back and check with the infrastructure team that I want to create a private pool. And within this private pool only, this platform should be visible. That application should be visible. Now, similarly, you can create a public pool. There is no restriction. Any people who want to access it, it can be accessed. So as a developer, you have that flexibility. You can create a private and you can create a public pool. or a public deployment, both public and private deployment. Whatever or wherever application you want to deploy, you have that flexibility. Either you can keep it as a private where only restricted people can access it, or either you can keep it public where n number of people can access it. Now, these are the advantages. As I've said, every service comes with some disadvantages. For platform as a service, there are few limitations as well. Now, what are limitations? See, migration issue. If you are the developer, you have deployed this application in certain environment and you're not satisfied with that environment, because we as a platform developer, we might not get that infrastructure flexibility. So in that case, if you want to migrate it to some other component, maybe from Windows to some other operating system, or from some other operating system to Windows, in that case, there can be a migration issue. Because if you install a specific application, if you deploy a specific application in Windows, and that application is not working properly, maybe because of that, you are moving out to some other operating system. In that case, the same options which you get in Windows would not be available in the another operating system. It's just an example. In case if you want to migrate from one system to another system, you will definitely face many migration issues, migration or connectivity, more a kind of connectivity. Now, the second disadvantage or the second limitation is, see, developers are limited to language and tools. Whatever tools we have, that language and tools means basically, see, in case of ADF, we only have a platform. I mean, we are creating a pipelines here, we are creating ETL related flows. In that case, if that pipeline is not working, I mean, you have an option, why is it not working, what is the exact error. But in case you want to go back and change that tool, just because the ADF is developed in certain infrastructure, in certain environment, that is the reason, that could be the reason. As a developer, you can guess that it is not working properly at this specific case. Why? Because it is not correctly developed, the infrastructure is not correctly updated. So in that case, you cannot go back and ask the infrastructure team that can we change it, because infrastructure team is managing the complete infrastructure. In that case, the limited option to tools are there. As a developer, whatever you want will not be able to get. In case of platform, if that platform is developed, you have to use that. Even if you have many questions, even if you have many kind of limitations to that specific tool, still you have to consume that tool. Why? Because you are not the infrastructure owner. Admin team has completely managed that infrastructure. So you have limited options to availability of a language and tools. Now, these are the basic limitations of platform as a service. Now, going down to platform as a service, what all examples can you take? ADF is one example. Um, if anyone is using
So,
AWS,
sorry,
mhm.
that migration is so basically I'm not understanding. Like we are
Okay,
using ADF pipeline to migrate.
okay, now good. See, we have got ADF is one of the ETL tool. Um, take example of another, a different ETL tool. Now, if you take an example of Informatica, see, you want to migrate a pipeline from ADF to Informatica. Ideally, the whatever pipeline you have developed, whatever transformation you have written in ADF, that has to be same in Informatica. Output has to be same. Input and output would be same there. But the thing is, whatever transformations you're doing in ADF, that same transformation is not available in Informatica. Either you have to do it in some other manner. Our primary aim is to get same output. But if you're doing the same ADF pipeline, you want to do as it is in Informatica, that cannot be possible, because Informatica has its own behavior, it has its own transformations. See, in Informatica, it is whatever cleaning, whatever transformation you're doing, it is called as transformation. Whereas in case of ADF, it is called as activity. Every transformation here is called as activity. What you do in ADF can be done in Informatica, but the thing is, if you're migrating, the same application cannot be used. You have to do it in a different manner. The pipeline has to be developed in a different manner in case of Informatica, and in case of ADF, the pipeline would be different. Ideally, our output should be same. That is their primary aim. Now, ADF is
Yes,
just an
understand.
example. Yep. ADF is just an example. If you are using AWS Elastic AWS Elastic Service. I mean, AWS Elastic Beanstalk. This is one of the example of platform as a service. Your Salesforce.com. In case of Salesforce, it's the force.com. There is a service called as force.com. Even that force.com is an example of platform as a service. See, most commonly used platform as a service is our ADF. Now, on an average, if I highlight it in simple terms, your complete Azure cloud is also a platform as a service. Your complete Azure cloud, more a kind of platform, less a kind of infrastructure. Because in case of Azure cloud, infrastructure is completely managed by Microsoft team. There are few services where you can also manage infrastructure, but most of the services are specifically for developers. In that case, it is also a platform as a service. These are individual services. This is a complete cloud. Now, is it correct that you can call a complete Azure as a platform as a service? Around 70% of Azure cloud is platform as a service, because 70% of the applications which are part and parcel of Azure are all related to platform. Now, let's get down to get an example of software as a service. See, whatever software you're using, your WhatsApp, your Gmail, your any email services, your taxi booking applications, any application which you use in your mobile, any application which you use in your desktop, laptops, are all related to software as a service. There, you are only consuming that software. You do not have a flexibility to go back and change the development environment. You're not the developer there, you're only the consumer. You're only consuming a specific application, you're only consuming a specific software. So for software as a service, it also comes with multiple advantages. Why multiple advantages? Universally accessible. If you're using that software, you can access it anywhere. Universally accessible. Um, it can allow multi-tenancy. Now, what do you mean by multi-tenancy? See, this multi-tenancy concept you will always use in cloud. Now, how multi-tenancy will work? If we go in detail, maybe after 30 minutes, you will get this exact example. What do you mean by tenancy? But in simple terms, if I wanted to highlight, see, if you're taking a subscription of a cloud, any consumer who is trying to take a subscription of a cloud, there would be specific ID associated with that subscription, maybe with that consumer. Now, a consumer can take a number of subscriptions with one email ID also, even that is possible. But the thing is, a certain consumer is consuming that cloud. Now, let's take an example of Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is a consumer or maybe a client who wants to consume a cloud service. They are coming to cloud service. In that case, they want to consume this cloud. So once they register, a specific ID is also assigned to that consumer, that Coca-Cola. They'll go back and they'll create multiple subscriptions. Now, in case of cloud, if you create a subscription, you can create a number of services in that subscription. We'll discuss in detail, but in simple terms, if a Coca-Cola is coming and they're trying to create, this can be subscription 1, subscription 2, subscription 3. This specific client can create n number of subscriptions with one single ID. This ID is called as a tenant. This ID is called as a tenant. Now, Coca-Cola has one tenant. This organization is spread across the world. It can be in India, it can be in US, it can be in Europe, it can be in any Middle East, or it can be in Southeast Asian countries also, or maybe the um, uh, any Australian or Pacific countries. So for every part of this world, a Coca-Cola has one single primary tenant. And if you're trying to take every part of a world, India will have one more tenant. Now that tenant is somewhere associated with this tenant only. This is primary tenant and this is a secondary tenant, which is called as multi-tenant. Now, one more country, maybe Europe you take. For Europe, there can be one more tenant. So on an average, a primary tenant can be associated with multiple tenants. Now, this is just an example. Coca-Cola is just an example. It can be PepsiCo also. It can be your any Microsoft. Even Microsoft has its own multi-tenants, depending on the region, depending on the country they are associating with, they are working with. So every company will have primary and every company will have multiple tenants. So allowing multi-tenancy is one of the concept used in cloud. It can parallelly process the data for different tenants. This is called as multi-tenancy. What can be one more advantage? If you're using a software, it can be collaborative. How collaborative? Your PowerPoint, PPT presentations. You can create your presentation and you can collaborate it with the multiple people. You can share it with multiple people. So that software can be accessible with n number of people. So collaborative. Um, this software can be utilized by vendors also. There is no risk. If you're consuming the software, which is a restricted software, only that organization people has to have that access to. But if there are few vendors who are working with a specific company, even vendors can consume. See, if you're working as a developer, there is a very rare chance you will share that platform with the vendor, because if you're sharing a platform with the vendor, there is a high chance of data security risk. Even if you share that infrastructure also, in case of infrastructure, security risk is there. But in case you are only sharing the software, there won't be any as such security risk. So vendors can consume this software as a service. Now, as I've said, software as a service is also one of the biggest advantage. But here, what all components are there? It's on-demand service. Wherever you want, however you want, on demand you can get it. Many of the softwares are pay per usage. If you have a platform, you have to pay for a platform, even if you're using that platform, or even if you're using that infrastructure or not, you have to pay completely. In case of infrastructure as a service, in case of platform as a service, you have to pay that amount. Whereas in case you're using a software, only the usage which you have consumed, for that usage only you have to pay it. Now, there are multiple advantages. If I go on adding, n number of advantages are there, but there are also limitations. Now, what limitations there are? See, if you are using one application which is running in one of the browser, it cannot be run in another browser also. Somewhere, if an application which is running good in Google Chrome, that same application will not always run completely correct in some other browser. So there can be few applications who have this connectivity or browser issues, browser or portability issues. This is common in any software. Browser portability issues, the most common limitation. um, compliance restriction. What all components can be there? It can be overall connectivity. See, connectivity can be a factor, deciding factor in infrastructure as well, network delays or service delays. But in case of a software which is completely developed and you want to connect to that software, even if the infrastructure is all good, but your end user connectivity is not good, in that case, complete software will never work properly. So if you're using a WhatsApp, if there is a downtime in WhatsApp, if there is a service outage in the WhatsApp, complete WhatsApp will, complete WhatsApp will never work. It will not even work. But in case everything is up and running, your infrastructure is all good, even your platform, your developer has completely developed that application, but somewhere your internet is not good. Sometimes you will get a message in WhatsApp, waiting for a message. You get some error. That means that issue is not with your WhatsApp, that issue is with your own connectivity, your internet connectivity. Now, wherever internet is low, that dip in software is also one of the limitation. Now, these are all altogether advantages and disadvantages for each and every service. Now, once you are good with a service, let's jump down to the Azure platform. We are going to learn Azure as a cloud service. In case of Azure as a cloud service, what all components are there, how every component plays an important role, that we are going to see. See, whatever service we would be consuming at that instance, I'll give you an idea whether is it a software as a service. Most of them are platform as a service. As I've said, see, in case of software as a service, we do not have a flexibility for development also. It is only install and consume it. In case of platform, we get a platform. In case of infrastructure, we get an infrastructure. So around 70% of the applications are platform as a service, and around 30% of them are infrastructure as a service. Whatever you develop, you create an application and you share it with the end user, that application can be called as software as a service. Now in Azure, to get started with how Azure is, how different is it? See, First and foremost component, if you take an example of a cloud, is subscription. What do you mean by subscription? It's not only specific to Azure. If you take an example of any cloud service, it always starts with a subscription. Subscription is nothing but you take an example of your OTT platform. The best example is your OTT platform. You are utilizing your Netflix, you're utilizing your Amazon Prime, you're utilizing your Z5, any OTT platform you take an example of, there you have to take a subscription. That means you have to take you have to pay certain amount and take that subscription. Now, once the payment is done, your subscription would be activated. Now, for that subscription, there is a unique ID, maybe with your email ID, maybe with your mobile number, that subscription is activated. Similarly, for any cloud, if you join a cloud, there would be a tenant associated with that. A tenant ID is associated with any individual. Now, let me give you brief insights what that tenant ID is. Now, how do I start a cloud is, see, portal.azure.com is the URL for Azure. Portal.azure.com. Let me mention the URL also. Portal.azure.com. This is the URL. If you mention this URL, it will directly navigate you to this Azure portal. Now here you have to start with your email ID, your domain email ID, and you have to activate this account where you'll get 200 free credits. After that, you have to pay. Now, how do you activate this cloud account that I would be showing once you enroll for this course? Once you get this email IDs, it's a simple process, but for now, just understand how this cloud environment works. See, I'm going back. This is my portal, the cloud portal, Azure cloud portal. This is my subscription. See, if I go to subscription, this is the subscription ID. Now, prior to subscription, there is a component called as tenant. There is always a component called as tenant. Let me show you the tenant as well. Now, I have logged in with the KSR email ID. With this KSR email ID, there is a specific tenant associated. That tenant name is KSR Consultant Services. And this is the tenant ID. This tenant ID is same for any individual who is part and parcel of this domain, ksrconsultantservices.com. There are around 2,230 active users in this domain. Now, if you are enrolling for this course, you would be added here. Your email ID would be created, and that addition of users would be going ahead. 2231, 2232. So how many user IDs, how many primary domains with their email IDs are created, it will go on adding the number of users. So prior creating a subscription, once you log in, with that login, this domain is created, and that domain has a certain tenant ID associated with it. So tenant ID is at the highest level. Any user who joins, now that user belongs to certain domain only. That user belongs to certain domain. Now, if you're a part of certain domain, the domain is called as a tenant ID. The domain is called as a tenant, and there is a tenant ID associated with it. Now, under that domain, there can be n number of users. All that users are associated with this primary tenant only. N users, n number of users. Now, in that case, n number of users per user can go ahead and create a subscription. A single user can create multiple subscriptions. Yes, that is possible. Even a single user can create multiple subscriptions. I'll keep it short. A single user can create multiple subscriptions. So tenant is at the highest hierarchy. Once that is done, the second hierarchy is below tenant, there is subscription. Now, whenever you create a subscription, there is a subscription ID associated with it. There is a subscription ID associated with it. Now, if I go back to the portal, see, I am one of the tenant here. I'm one of the tenant. How do I check it? I'll go to the users. See, here in the users, every user is listed. See, for me, I have two email IDs and I'm listed here. I'm one of the user. Now I've logged in with one of the email ID. Once I've logged in, I'll go back. This is my primary portal. Here I have a subscription already. So I can go ahead and create multiple subscriptions also. See, there is an offer. Once you click on add, under this, there is already a new subscription. You can also create one more subscription. Now, free trial is not there for me. Why? Because I have already consumed that free trial, either pay as you go or either Azure for students. Now, yesterday I've highlighted Azure for students, it is not recommended. Why? Because we are using it for some our analysis. If you are a part of a certain college, there you can use this Azure for student. But if you are logging in from a certain domain which is out of your education specific domain, in that case you have to use it as a free trial, and once the free trial is done, you can go pay as you go. So there is already an existing subscription, but in that subscription I can create. In that means within, this is one, I can go ahead and create one more subscription. Even if I create second, I have a flexibility, I can go and create third subscription also. So one tenant, under that tenant n users, under that n number of users, one user can go ahead and create multiple subscriptions, as if, I mean, he's a developer here. He'll get that subscription, he'll get that platform to create multiple subscriptions. Now, once the subscription is done, whenever you create a subscription, under that subscription, the second hierarchy, I mean, the highest is tenant, after that it's subscription. After subscription, the hierarchy is called as resource group. Now, what do you mean by resource group? Prior to getting an understanding of resource group, this is one, this is two. Prior to getting an understanding of resource group, let's go back. This is my already created a subscription. I'll go here. Let me minimize this. I'll come down. See, once I'm in the subscription, if I come down, there are a few options here. There is an option called as resource group. What do you mean by resource group? There are 3 different resource group created here. Now, in simple terms, if I come down to resource, there is only one resource. If I click on create, it will give you all the services which are available in cloud. So a resource is nothing but service. Sometimes it is called as service, sometimes it is called as resource. Resource and service both are same in cloud, or specifically in case of Azure cloud. These are all the services available in Azure. These are all the resources available in Azure. So just to get an idea, third component is resource, and that resource is also called as service. So each and every service which is available in Azure, you can create that specific service. Once you create that service, prior creating that service, now if I click on virtual machine, so it will navigate to virtual machine, creation of a virtual machine. Here it is asking me subscription. This is the subscription. After subscription, it is asking me resource group. At once you mention resource group, in the third instance, it is asking me virtual machine name. That means that specific service name it is asking. Virtual machine is the service, and what name you want to give to that virtual machine, it is asking that option here. So what do you mean by resource group? I can select any specific resource group under this subscription. See, resource group is nothing but a clubbing of multiple resources or services in a group. You want to combine multiple services or resources in one single group is called as resource group, and it is compulsion. Once you create a subscription, under that subscription, you have to create a resource group. One subscription can have n number of resource groups. One subscription can have n number of RGs. RGs is nothing but your resource group. Now, what do you mean by resource group? Clubbing of multiple resources or services is called as a group. Now, in case of resource, in case of service, services available in Azure. Whatever service you call, that service is called as a resource. It can be a service, it can be resource. Both are same. Do not get confused. What do you mean by resource? What do you mean by service? Both are same. And if you club that under one single group, that is called as resource group. It is not called as service group. It is called as resource group. Now that is how the names are kept. A resource can be called as service, but if you're grouping that resources, it is only called as a resource group, not as a service group. And that resource group is a part of subscription. So one subscription can have multiple RGs, one RG can have multiple services. Anyhow, RG means a group of services. So one RG can have n number of services. This is how the hierarchy flows. At the uppermost hierarchy is the tenant. Below tenant, there can be multiple subscriptions, or there can be multiple users, n number of users, and one user can create multiple subscription, and one subscription can have multiple resource group. One resource group can have multiple services.
So, sir, like in a resource group, we can create different kind of services also.
Yes. So if I go down, I have selected this ADF Ritesh Fabric as a resource group. I want to create a virtual machine, name that virtual machine, create that virtual machine. Again, go back. Now, in this resource group, I want to create one more service. See, if I click here, there is no as such service, or there is no as such resource present here. I have an option here. Go to this marketplace. Whatever service you want, you can create multiple services. That doesn't mean if you're creating virtual machine, you only go on and creating, I mean, if you've created a virtual machine in one resource group, next time you can create some other service. It is not that every service which is present in a resource group should be a same service. No, that is not the case. You can create any service in a resource group. You can create any resource group, n number of resource group in a one single subscription. You can create multiple subscriptions under one single user, and that user is a part of one single tenant.
Got it.
Can we able to create multiple resources in single resource group? Like for example, one resource group, in that can we able to create multiple resource groups, like same like virtual machines, two virtual machines can be able to create?
Yes, we can create two virtual machines. If you want a combination of virtual machine and ADF, we can create that. If you want a combination of virtual machine, ADF and SQL, you can create that. If you want a combination of SQL and storage account, whatever service you want, you can create that. Same service, different service, combination of multiple services, yes, any option is feasible. Now, why they have created resource group is, see, if you're a working professional, assume that you're a working professional, you're a part of one tenant. You're a part of one tenant. And there is a tenant ID associated with that tenant. There is a tenant ID. And in that tenant ID, you're coming down to one of the user of that tenant. You're one of the user, and once that user has created one subscription. Now, just this is just an example. There is only one subscription for that one user, and that user has created one resource group. And under this resource group, there are multiple services. Now, as a developer, you are working on these services, you are leaving this organization. In case if you're leaving this organization, the resource group which you have created, it is in your name. Developer who has created it is in your name. There is a flexibility. You can completely migrate this resource group from one resource group to another resource group also. Maybe this subscription is not created at individual level. This is created at organizational level. You're working in one project, maybe organization or maybe project level, one subscription is created. Usually it is created at project level. An organization can have multiple projects, so one subscription can be part of a kind of one complete project. Resource group, you can create your own individual resource group. You can create your own individual services as and when you have that flexibility. So if you are moving out of this company, you have to move all these services to new resource group. You cannot individually transfer a service. Individual transfer of service is not there. There is no option to individually transfer that service from one user to another user. You have to group that in one resource group, and that complete resource group you can migrate to some other resource group, maybe some other developers resource group. You are developer one, you are moving out of that project, or maybe you are moving out of that organization. You want to move all these services, you can move that services to developer two who has created a new resource group. That is possible. Now, how is it possible? I'll go down to this subscription. Under this subscription, this is a resource group. If I click on this resource group, I guess there are no resources created. That is the reason there is no option to transfer it. You'll get an option here. See, move to another resource group. You also have a flexibility. You can move to another subscription as well. Now, the question is, this subscription is created for one project, and this project is completed. This project is completed, and you want to move it to the production. You want to move to the further production. In that case, production support team is a different project team. In that case, they have a different subscription. So you can move that complete services which are present in one RG to a different subscription as well, or maybe to a different resource group as well. From one RG to different RG, from one RG to a different subscription. Both of them are feasible. There is an option, move to resource group, move to another subscription. Now, there is one more option, move to another region. I'll explain you what do you mean by region. But prior to this, let's get an understanding of resource group, and subscription. Any
So, sir,
questions?
according to you, like in project wise, we have different subscription ID, but in company we have single talent ID,
Yes, in
tenant
company
ID.
we have one tenant ID, because assume that you are working for TCS. TCS can be one tenant. Primary tenant is one TCS tenant at the rate TCS.com. That is the domain name, at the rate TCS.com. Under this TCS domain, n number of users can be there. There are around 6 lakh people who are actively working, who are an active employee of TCS. So 6 lakh people, individual users are there in one single tenant. Does that answer?
Yeah, got it, got it.
Now, any questions? I'll take a pause of a minute, because this is much important. If you are working in any cloud domain, you have to know this concept: tenant, subscription, resource group, and resource or individual resource or a service. And there is a flexibility. As I've said, you can move resources from one RG to different RG. You can move resources from one subscription to different subscription. That is possible.
Ritesh, but let's say this tenant what we have, that is our main tenant. So under that, they can have multiple subscriptions for a respective region. Is it for the same region they can have a number of subscriptions? So is that possible?
Yes. See, there is an option. Move to another region is
Move to
also
another
there.
region. Okay.
Maybe this is not enabled for me. Why? Because all these resource groups are created in one region only. Now, if I would have created a resource group in a different region, there I would have got this option enabled. Now we are yet to touch this. I'll explain how this region comes into picture. See, if you're creating now, anyhow, we are discussing, let's come down. Once the resources is done, after resource, for every resource, there is one region associated with that. Now, what do you mean by region? See, how cloud architecture work is, cloud architecture work is. Now, this is with, I mean, not only specific to Azure, this can be anywhere in the world, or maybe any cloud system you're taking look at. This is same. See, an Azure, this is complete world map. And in this world map, there are many dots here. So this one single blue dot, which is in circular in shape, is called as one data center. A cloud has data which can be stored in multiple data centers. This is a cloud. Now, cloud will never have only one data center. It can have multiple data centers in different regions. Depending on region, depending on country, depending on continent, there are different regions. For Azure, there are around 54 regions as of now. 54 regions, that means 54 different data center options we have. There are not only 54 data centers. One region can have multiple data centers. One region can have multiple data centers. This is data center, this is data center, this is the one data center. So one region can have two, one region can have three, but as of now there are around 54 regions, and one region, as I've said, every region can have multiple data centers. If I go down, now this is the Microsoft data center complete globe. If you see an example of India, Central India is one data center and South India is one data center. Under this data center, these are two different regions. Central India is one region, South India is one region. There is one more region coming here, India East, which is up and running now, but it is not yet listed. Only for few of the services it is an active, maybe it is in trial basis or preview version, but maybe in few months you'll get the third region available for India for an Azure. So as of now, two of them are active and running, which are also listed, Central India and South India. Now, there are few points here. These points will highlight which region you are. The diamond will highlight you are a part of which country. If I place here, UAE is a country, Qatar is a country. So these diamonds are highlighting country. This light blue or greenish shade circles are highlighting which region you are. And there are few network connectivities. This is a network, POP network. In Mumbai, there is a POP network. In Gujarat, there is a POP network. In Delhi, there is a POP network. There is some network connectivity towers are there. That towers are somewhere connected to the data centers or regions. So under Central India, the Central India is part and parcel of Pune. In Pune, you have a Central India region located for Azure. And in Pune, there are 3 different data centers as of now, which are active. One region can have multiple data centers. As I've said, one region can have multiple data centers. So there are 3 different data centers for Azure in Pune region, which is Central India. Now, if I come down to South India, this is Chennai. For Azure, there is no Hyderabad region. For AWS, we have 3 different data centers in Hyderabad. For Azure, there is Chennai, and in Chennai, there are 2 different data centers associated with this South India region. Now, the question is, if there are multiple data centers, how they are clubbed to one region? If you're working on a cloud, that means you're consuming some memory. That memory would be stored in certain rack, certain storage. That storage would be from one region, and from that one region, that storage would be from one of the data center. So the reason why they are creating multiple data centers is, if one of the data center is going down, the other 2 data centers can handle the load of that capacity. I mean, whatever capacity you're creating, it can handle that. Now, that is one primary region. That is one primary, you can say one of the reason. After that, I mean, one more reason is, if you take 1 acre land, and in that case, for that 1 acre land, you are spending around 10 crores. Now, the land rate in India is very high. If you're spending 10 crores for 1 acre land, it is simply waste of amount. Now, if you take an example of, again, I'll go back to this globe. So this is auto rotating. For India, Central India is in Pune, so there is no water body associated with Pune. There is no direct sea associated with Pune. Now, if I come down to South India, see, for this South India, there are 2 data centers, and out of the 2 data centers, one of their data center has their information stored in underwater. How is it possible? What they'll do, every data center has multiple racks. Now I'll explain.
So, sir, like similar to network, so these data center are connected to submarine cables.
Yes.
Oh.
Underwater submarine cables they are connected to, and they have a certain, this is how the data center will look like. Now, if I click on the enter the lobby, how a data center works, you can get an idea here. This website is a bit slow, but yeah, it will definitely work. See, each and every information of data center cannot be shared publicly. This is a restricted information, but still, how many data centers are there that can be shared? How that data flows, where is it stored, how it glows, that cannot be shared. But yeah, this is the lobby. It will take some time, just load it. The lobby, in the lobby, see, you can click on explore the lobby. This is how the lobby will look alike. The Microsoft lobby will look alike. Once you enter a data center, this is the lobby. Now, after lobby, the second one is operation room. See, there is an arrow here at the rightmost. I've clicked on that arrow. There is this operation room. Now, in this operation room, how it works, you can get an idea. All our developers will sit here. Now, the question is, are there IT people here? As compared to IT, there are more a kind of electrical or electronic engineers. Number of computer engineers are almost 5 to 10% in data center. 90% of them would be electrical or electronic engineers. They'll sit here, they'll try to decide See, these data centers will have multiple small cables, multiple racks. So a software engineer will not go and sit, setting up all these wires. It has to be an electrical or electronic engineer who can manage the downtime, who also knows how to connect, who also knows how to make sure the correct electricity flow is there. That is all managed by electronics and electrical engineers. And if you're working in data center, you will be paid a good amount. Now, once this operation room is done, we have to go down to the mechanical room. Every data center, how it works, all this information is kept here. This is how a mechanical room will look like. In mechanical room, these are all the subunits, and in these subunits, there are multiple racks in which the data information, our data, our cloud, whatever services we are creating, that would be stored. This is the server room. At the last, you'll get an idea about server room. How server room is there? That all multiple cabins you have seen, that one cabin is called as one server room, and in this server room there are multiple racks. These are all the racks. So whatever information you consume, that is stored in all these racks. Now, how this information is further bifurcated: if you're creating one resource, it is associated with one region. One region is associated with one or multiple data centers. And in one data center there can be multiple server rooms. Now these server rooms are units. Usually they are called as units. One resource associated to one region associated to multiple data centers, one data center is associated to multiple server rooms or multiple units. This is how the information is physically stored in any cloud process. Now the thing is, a server room can be on ground or underwater. Now, why underwater they have started is, see, in case you keep that information underwater, there is a very low security risk as compared to on ground. See, on ground, some terrorist activity can take place, which can damage that complete servers. It will impact their complete business. This is one of the reason. One more reason is revenue. If that person is trying to purchase 1 acre land, he's utilizing 10 crores. He want to increase that number of server rooms. In case if he want to increase, he have to purchase some additional land. So if we go on and purchasing additional lands, 1 acre will cost you around 10 crores. In peak cities, see, usually these data centers are kept nearby us, a kind of cosmopolitan city, either by Pune, Hyderabad, any big cities in India which are more specific to, which are nearest to some IT hubs. These data centers are managed such a way because developers can easily be accessible there. We can hire the developers, we can hire electrical or electronic engineers, and their connectivity is also easy. So if you go on purchasing 10 crores, it is simply waste of money. Revenue is more. Rather than purchasing 10 crores additional land, if you purchase a land which is next to the sea, which is near the seashore, you can dump your data centers underwater. Here also a permission is required. International water treaty, all these permissions are required. But if you spend 10 crores on a land, here if you are dumping this data center underwater, you can, there would be a definitely change in revenue. Maybe you will be spending 1 crore only, which is more than enough. You are saving 9 crores of your amount, your revenue. So that is the reason many cloud providers are purchasing land near to seashore, and they are dumping that data center, they are dumping that server rooms underwater.
So, sir, like on underwater data center, if we create, so cost will be increase or decrease,
Cost will
basically
be decreased.
in
Cost
that
will be decreased.
infrastructure. Okay.
Why?
So,
As I've said, if you're purchasing additional land, you're spending 10 crores for that 1 acre. Whereas if you want to dump that data center or server room underwater, maybe you have to take some permissions accepted. You have to take some international water treaty, your that local region permission to save habitat. That is all possible. You're only dumping a data center. You're not dumping any waste into water. You can remove the data center whenever you require. If I take, see here, this is how underwater data centers are there. A small container, a petroleum-like container would be kept. Under this, there would be multiple servers. And after every 1 year or 2 year, they try to take this data center out, they clean it, they check if there are any downtime, there are some issues, and then again dump it to the water again.
Okay, so these there will be no need to any people to maintain these.
Yes, maintaining is there. These data centers are connected via underwater cables to the nearest room or the nearest location. There they will
Every time
manage
we
it.
no need.
Yeah, additional revenue, additional space is not required. If you take additional space, see, you have 1 acre of land, you're trying to purchase 1 more acre where you want to increase the number of server rooms. For this additional 1 acre, you have to, maintain security. You have to maintain your staff of cleaning staff, your additional cleaning staff who daily come on daily basis, clean that specific area. But if you dump that server room or server unit underwater, there is no need to maintain anything. Only thing is that
Uh,
underwater server is connected to the nearest data center where everything is managed.
yeah, cooling cost also down.
Yep. So everything will come down. Now, are you good with one resource? Can be associated with region. Region can be multiple data center. One data center can have multiple server rooms or server units. Now, how is it possible where while creating any, once you have created a subscription, if I'll go down, I'll click on create a subscription. Go to subscription, click on add a subscription, select an offer. So it will ask you to sign up. Every time it will ask you to sign up. Somewhere my password is different. I have to go back and remember. While creating, let me show you how different is it. Enter this subscription. See, I would always recommend once you create one single subscription, every time you want to create a new resource, you can directly type that resource name here. You want to create data factory, mention data factory. The data factory will come. But as a first time developer, you are working on cloud, it is always recommended search. You are in the home tab, go to this key, which is subscription icon. Whatever subscription you have created, click on that subscription, come down. Under this subscription, there can be resource group. If at all there is no resource group created, you have that flexibility, you can create that resource group. See, while creating resource group also, it is asking you for the region. Location I've selected as East US. Under this resource group, if I click here, you can create multiple resources. While creating resources also, you have a flexibility. You can select. Now, if I come down, I want to create a storage account. I'll click on the storage account. Let me click on create. Here, it will ask you to give certain information. Subscription is selected. Resource group is selected. Now, what should be the storage account name? And here you have that flexibility, which region you want to create this subscription. Now, as an ideal cloud developer, if you're creating a service or a resource, see, both are same. If you're creating a service or a resource, it is recommended nearest region. It is always recommended to create in the nearest region. But if you're utilizing for the free credits, if you're consuming your $200 free credits, when you log in very first time to this Azure portal, there you do not have that flexibility. You can select multiple regions. Default US region, East US is selected because this was the very first region with Azure started their business. So this is one of the biggest data center, East US. I guess in East US, if I show it to you, where exactly is it? Somewhere around New York. East US. It's around Virginia. The state of Virginia, they have their biggest data center, and default East US is selected for many of the resources. Why? Because few of the services which you are creating under that free trial, that are only feasible to be running in East US only. There is a flexibility. You can select India region also. Anyhow, we are from India. If you are from any other country, you can select that nearest data center. And we are from India. Let me see if the India option is there. See, Central India, I can select that. If this Central India is there, there won't be any error displayed here. That means this storage account can be created under Central India. You can go ahead and create this under Central India. But some of these services will not work properly for Central India. Why? Because you are utilizing your free trial. After free trial is done, if at all it's a paid subscription, in that case, you can select any region you want. So recommended is select the nearest region. Why? Because one of the reason to select nearest region is, see, if you're working in India and if there is a downtime in the data center, that region, under that region there are data centers, and if there is a downtime, in that case, usually downtime happens in the night, and a notification is would be already sent that within this time you might experience certain dip in resource availability. Maybe whatever resources you have created, there would be a chance that resources will not behave correctly in that specific time. So if there is a downtime in India, usually downtime happens after 1 a.m. in the midnight till maximum 3 a.m. After 3 a.m. it again the India region is up and running. So 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. in case of US, you have created a resource under India region. In case of US, 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. time would be working hours. For India, it is 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. For US, it would be working hours. So in that case, if a team is working from India, select the nearest region. But if you're working as a team from India and US together, it is always recommended to create US or select US region. Why? Because our clients are at US location. Wherever the client is, select that region. It is just an example. I've selected US. If your client is in Europe, select the nearest country whom you are working with. Maybe in Netherlands, maybe in Germany, maybe in UK, whichever country, maybe in France, you can select that nearest region, because client doesn't want downtime. Downtime should not be there.
So, sir,
Accept.
on cloud, I think we have rare downtime or it's frequent.
It's very rare. And how do you verify that downtime is there? See, in Azure portal itself, there is an option called as monitor. You can monitor how your resource is working. You can monitor how your subscription is working.
Okay.
You can monitor your applications. You can monitor your virtual machines. You can monitor your storage accounts. You can monitor your containers. You can monitor your network, your SQL. Every services can be monitored here. There is a very rare downtime, but in that rare instance also, it is recommended to utilize the nearest location where the client is located for. Now, these all rules we have to follow while working as a cloud. See, if you only know ADF, that doesn't mean you should only know ADF. As a Power BI developer, ADF is the only thing which should be known. But if you're learning cloud, learn basics of cloud also, which is much, much important. If you do not know, I have seen resources who know how to use ADF, but who doesn't know how to scale up and scale down the ADF. Delete that ADF as a service. Many of them doesn't know. So it is always recommended you should know basics of cloud. These are all basics. I'm not saying these are all advanced concepts. These are all basics, and basics of cloud should be clear, because sometime you might be working in Azure. Once you move out of an organization, you're working with some other client, you're working with some other project, or maybe some other organization. Their Azure would not be used, their AWS would be used. In case of ADF, same process would be there. Tenant, subscription, resources, or maybe resource group and resources, and how do you select a region. Process would be same there.
Right. So that storage count you create, that's blob or ADLS?
It's blob. I
That's
was selecting as a blob. I haven't created it. Just an example I've taken. Once we move to the real-time working, there I'll create it. But to give you an idea, I've just opened it at my end. And if you're using Azure, you can use this Google also, your Google Chrome. But recommended is always go with Edge. Edge, Microsoft Edge, it's a product of Microsoft. It's an upgraded version of Internet Explorer. So default Edge would be available. It is not required to download Edge in your system. Edge already comes pre-installed with your Windows system. So it is always recommended to use Edge. In Edge, mention your portal.azure.com. You can use this. See, if you're logging in for the very first time, If you're logging in for the very first time, I'll give you an idea. With this email ID, I've never logged in. Let me give you an idea. For me, that different email ID where subscription is visible, that is already a paid account. But if you're logging in for the very first time, how does it an account look alike? Uh, for the people who are already joined with SQL and Power BI, they already know. I've given them an idea. But for the one who are new for attending this classes via your links, how you can activate your Azure portal, I'll show you once you get your email IDs. But if you're logging in very first time, it would be certainly different. The view would be certainly different. How that view would be, I'll give you an idea.
Got it. That Power BI we have as a service, or it's a different SaaS software?
Power BI is a software as a service. Your powerbi.com.
No, in Azure,
In Azure, Power BI
we
is not
create.
a service. So Azure is not a part of Azure. Sorry, Power BI is not a part of Azure.
Okay.
Power BI is a part of Fabric, and Fabric is a part of Azure. Now, how Power BI is a part of Fabric? See, our powerbi.com, this service has been merged with your Microsoft Fabric. Now, how do you verify it? Maybe you have attended yesterday's session or not, but I'll give you an idea. See, this earlier there was only powerbi.com. Now powerbi.com is part and parcel of Fabric. Now, under this Fabric, there are multiple services which are also available in cloud. You have to know in cloud how to utilize this service. Then it is very easy to consume that service in Fabric. Now, the question is how Fabric is related to cloud. See, for 60 days, you will get free trial of a Fabric. After 60 days, you have to use that Fabric as a paid service. If you're using this as a paid service, there is a background storage associated with this Fabric. That storage is called as SKU. Here you have to create a new Fabric capacity, and that capacity is called as SKU. You have to select what kind of SKU you want to use, and it is very costly. Fabric is very, very costly. If you use this basic F2 also, it's you are spending 21,000. And even if you use it, even if you don't use this SKU, if you have created it, you have to spend 21,000.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if suppose, as you mentioned that we should select the nearest region, right? So, like if suppose we are working on a client, then we can't select East US region,
You can.
as you mentioned.
You can.
Okay, okay.
Whatever region you want. See, your tenant location isn't central India. You cannot create this resource in a different location. For Fabric, it is on the face, it is giving me an error that my tenant, the KSR tenant, is located in central India. Why are you creating in East US? You cannot create this Fabric in East US. You have to create it in central India only. Maybe let me see. Can I create it in South India? South India. No, I cannot even create in South India. There are few services which are only restricted to that specific region. Many of them you can create it anywhere, but see, Fabric itself, it can be created to your domain where your domain is located, your tenant is located. Your tenant is from South India, maybe Central India. That is the reason it is navigating, it is recommending you to use Central India only.
Okay, thanks.
Now we are good with the today's discussion. We have started with basics of cloud. I'll pause here. I'll take a pause. Let's connect back on Monday with the further services. We'll start with the creation of ADF small storage accounts. How this will work, how you can navigate from one RG to different RG. That we'll take an example of. But for now, we are good with today's session. Any questions? Any confusion you have? Free to ask. Might be your related to this course. Now, someone who have joined today only, this course is only for Azure who already knows Power BI. One who knows Power BI and who wants to upskill themselves in Azure infrastructure as a data analyst, these all skills would be covered. From a data analyst or from a Power BI, from a BI engineer point of perspective, these all skills would be covered. Yeah, I'm open for questions. Any questions?
Ritesh, you said that until and unless we don't get email ID, we will be logging through this link.
Sadicha, you have your email ID. Do not worry. You can activate it.
Okay.
Maybe if you have shown, maybe you have gone back to your 3 days back recording. There, I have highlighted again. By next week, again, I'll highlight how to activate your account.
Okay, okay. Sorry, no problem.
One who have already joined, who are already existing part of the KSR, this specific course, your email IDs are there. I'll again show you how to activate it. But for the one who wants to join this course as a new entrant, for them, um, the email IDs would be shared once you enroll for this course. Any questions? Any confusion?
Okay, Ritesh, whatever
Yeah,
reason
Manoj.
you select, maybe Indian or US,
Hmm.
so they must have the backup copy for our data, right?
Everywhere, whatever data center you're selecting, there is a backup.
Yeah. So, if there is downtime, then it should continue with other backup. I think
Uh,
we want to.
Usually, see,
Mhm.
some or other day you will face certain downtime. If you use any application, see, services like WhatsApp, services like Facebook, services like Instagram are going down. That means their data centers are going down.
Right.
Someday, I'm not saying every time you'll face that downtime. Even if there is a downtime, they'll balance it. Load balancers are kept. For one region, that is the the basic idea in one region to create multiple data centers is to balance that downtime.
But our data is only one reason.
No. If you are storing a data in one of the data center, that complete data center load balancing would be taken care by some other data center. If there is a downtime, if there is a electricity cutoff at one of the data center or maybe one of the server unit, what
Right.
they'll do, before cutoff only, they'll have that load balancer which will take that load to some other unit. That is how the load data centers are completely managed. Very rarely you will face that downtime. Once in a year, definitely. See, if you're working as a data analyst, if you're working as a technical guy, any product you use, there would be downtime. Maybe once, but still, you will face one downtime per year.
Right.
Any other questions?
So can you just help me with the Fabric? Like how are Power BI reports integrated with the Fabric? Uh,
See, Power BI, you want to learn Fabric. In Fabric, we would be not learning Power BI. Power BI is anyhow completed. The thing is, if you are using a Fabric,
mhm.
if you want to create in a Fabric, it is not recommended to create report in Fabric. Fabric means your powerbi.com. If you're using this powerbi.com, if you visit any specific website, workspace, in this workspace, this is one of the report. See, if you open this report, you cannot publish. Once you publish this report, you have an option to edit this report. Maybe in this workspace, I do not have edit. Let me see dispatch.
Mm.
Now here we have an option called as edit. You can edit this report, you can change the visual. But if you're downloading Power BI desktop, in case of Power BI desktop, you will get all the options enabled there. Fabric is nothing but combination of cloud services along with Power BI. Power BI service is still the same. There isn't any change in Power BI service. The only difference is the Power BI service, they have clubbed it to Fabric environment, where all these cloud-based services are there. If you learn Data Factory in Azure, you can learn Data Factory in Fabric also. And this Data Factory in Fabric, Fabric is a product of cloud. Somewhere they are navigating to cloud only. Any question? Okay, I guess we are good. Seems no question. Yeah, Sadicha, you have a question?
The email ID?
Your case or email ID only?
Yes, for Azure.
Yeah, for Azure. How to activate it? I have shown on Wednesday's session, one who are already part
Okay,
of Power BI. For one
I
who are
will check
joining
that.
new, yeah, sure. I'll definitely again, once we would be learning ADF, once we would be learning storage account, um, maybe in the next week, end of next week, I'll again show you how to activate your portal, how to make sure your portal is created and you're utilizing your that $200 credits.
Okay, okay. I thought, okay, I attended that session. I thought the link of which you are sharing right now for the Zoom, I thought
No, this is
for
not
that you are
separate.
saying.
For you, it is same. For the people who have joined with Power BI and SQL, it is same. There are few people who have only learned Power BI and SQL previously, and they didn't. I mean, the cloud was not introduced back with the KSR. So, since last 6 months only, we are taking sessions on Azure. So, if you want to take a session on Azure, you are interested, because nowadays for Power BI it is very difficult to get a job directly. Only Power BI, cloud and Power BI combination is must. So, for them who wants to join, the session is for them, specifically for them.
Okay, I
For
thought. Oh,
yeah, for your Power BI folks, we are continuing the same process.
no, I also want to attend Azure session.
This
So,
is this is your I mean, you are part of the same Azure session only, ma'am. There is no difference. There would be few new additions. That is the reason we are keeping a
mhm.
Zoom link. We are continuing the same process.
Okay, so these recordings will be available
Yep,
on
yep.
KSR website
Yes,
in
yes.
our cloud.
Your recordings would be available. I guess yesterday you have asked a question. You or Bhunesh had a question. So Mahesh had also answered in the group. You can check that. Do
Okay,
not get confused. Your scores is same. It is continuity only.
all right, sure.
So Ritesh, this is our first batch for with a fabric, right? Like if in case if I want to join late, like in some 2 3 months later, so upcoming
Fabric
batches will be there, right?
Fabric batches are there. Um, in case of Fabric, every Power BI batch, probably I would be the only trainer going ahead. Santosh, um, his batch is running as of now. Maybe after 2 months, he would be starting with Fabric. But after 2 months, you have to get that. I mean, you have to get in touch with the KSR team. There would be
Mm.
batches going on for Fabric,
Okay.
but usually it will take 2 to 3 months. So you have to wait for 2 to 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Then, if there are no questions, let's connect back on Monday with our further cloud aspects. Yep. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.